The human colony on Zarian 7 was quiet that morning, but the silence felt wrong. Small shuttles moved lazily across the sky, and the distant hum of machinery barely covered the nervous whispers of colonists. For Kale, a young human engineer, the quiet was the wrong kind. He had worked on this remote settlement for months, fixing power generators, repairing communication arrays, and making sure life support systems ran smoothly. But nothing could have prepared him for what was coming. It started with coughing. At first, it was scattered, just a few colonists coughing in the mess hall or in the corridors. Kale thought it was nothing, maybe the usual cold that swept through any small settlement. But by midday, more people were falling ill. Their skin looked pale, their eyes sunken, and some could barely stand. Panic began to spread faster than the sickness itself. Kale was on the 3rd floor of the medical wing when he felt the first symptoms himself. His head ached, his throat burned, and his chest felt tight. He leaned against the cold metal wall and swallowed hard, trying to ignore it. Ignoring it hadn't worked for the others. He knew that. Then, the shuttles arrived. They came from the stars like silver shadows, silent and precise. Colonists gathered in the open courtyard, pointing and whispering. Kyle pushed his way through, hoping to see what kind of help was coming. When the shuttles landed, the doors opened smoothly, revealing beings unlike anything Kale had seen before. Their skin shimmered faintly, almost like polished metal, and their eyes glowed softly. They moved with grace, every step deliberate and calm. At the front was a female alien, her presence commanding yet gentle. She carried a small medical kit that glowed faintly with unknown energy. "You must be the engineers and leaders here," she said, her voice clear and musical, but strangely soothing. She looked directly at Kale, and he felt a shiver run down his spine. Her eyes were the color of liquid silver, calm but sharp, as if she could see through him. I'm Kale," he stammered, suddenly aware of how small and human he felt next to her. I work on the colony systems." The alien nodded once. "I am Nivara, sent to stabilize your population. There is a virus present. It spreads quickly. It will take more than your current medicine to stop it." Kale felt his stomach drop. He had seen outbreaks before, but never like this. Never so fast, never so deadly. We'll do anything," he said. Nivara studied him for a moment. "I can save lives," she said. "But some of you are already too weak. You must cooperate fully." By the time Kale returned to the infirmary, the situation was worse. Colonists were collapsing in the hallways. Machines beeped frantically. Panic had begun to overtake order. He stumbled over a body and nearly fell himself. His own chest burned, but he forced himself forward. Nivara moved through the infirmary like a calm storm. Her hands glowed with faint light as she touched the sick. A man who had been near death gasped, sitting upright as color returned to his cheeks. Kale watched, wide-eyed. He had never seen medicine like this. You saved him," Kale said, almost whispering. "It is my purpose," Nivara replied simply, her gaze briefly meeting his. "But I cannot save everyone alone. You must assist me. Your systems can help monitor the patients." Kyle nodded, feeling both relief and fear. Relief that someone so powerful had arrived. Fear, because he knew the sickness was inside him too. His vision blurred, his head pounded, and he nearly collapsed. Nivara was at his side instantly, steadying him with a hand that felt firm but strangely warm. "You are weak," she said, her tone neutral. "You must rest and allow the treatment." Kyle shook his head. "I can't. There's too much to do. Others—" His voice faltered. Nivara's eyes softened just slightly. "If you do not allow treatment, you will die. Do you wish to survive, Kale?" He nodded, too exhausted to speak. She guided him to a small bed in the corner and touched his chest. A warm glow spread over his body, and pain slowly ebbed from his muscles and joints. Breathing became easier. His vision cleared. He gasped. I feel better. Your body will recover, Nivara said, but only if you cooperate fully. There is a bond that must form between healer and patient. It is temporary but necessary. Do you understand? Kyle's mind spun. Bond? He wasn't sure he wanted to understand. Yes, he whispered, afraid to ask what it meant. As the hours passed, Kale watched Nivara move through the infirmary, saving humans one by one. She worked tirelessly, never faltering, never resting. And yet, every time her gaze met his, he felt something he could not describe, something beyond gratitude, something that made his chest tighten in a strange way. By nightfall, the first wave of the outbreak had been slowed, though not stopped. Kyle lay on his bed, exhausted but alive. Nivara approached him, her presence calming. "You will live," she said softly. "But survival is not guaranteed. Tomorrow will bring new challenges." Kale tried to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he nodded, staring at her. The weight of the day pressed down, but underneath it, a new thought began to grow in his mind. He had survived the outbreak so far because of her, and now he didn't know if he could imagine surviving without her. Outside, the colony lay under the cold light of the twin moons, silent, but for the soft hum of life support systems and distant alarms. Inside, Kyle realized that his life had changed, forever. An alien healer had entered his world, saving him from death. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The sun rose over Zarion 7, casting long orange shadows across the colony. The outbreak had slowed, but the fear in the colonists' eyes had not. Kale woke in the small infirmary bed, his body sore but alive. Nivara was already moving among the patients, her hands glowing faintly as she healed one colonist after another. Kale swung his legs over the side of the bed and tried to stand. His body felt weak, but he needed to do something. He had spent months maintaining the colony's systems. If power failed or life support faltered, more people would die. Yet for the first time, he felt powerless. Nivara approached him, her silver eyes calm. "You are ready to assist," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Your cooperation is required if we are to save the colony." Kyle nodded, unsure how much he could contribute in his weakened state. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "Need you to form a bond," Nivara replied without hesitation. "It is a temporary connection. It allows my healing energy to work efficiently through you and toward others. Without it, many will not survive." Kyle frowned. "Bond? What do you mean?" "It is a ritual of trust in my culture," she explained. "It is simple. You will agree to join with me. Nothing beyond survival is required, though. Feelings may develop. That is your choice." Kyle felt his stomach tighten. Feelings? He was not ready to think about anything beyond staying alive, but he also knew the colony's lives depended on this connection. He swallowed hard. I'll do it," Nivara nodded. "Good. We begin immediately." The procedure was unlike anything Kyle had imagined. Nivara held his hands and closed her eyes. A soft light flowed between them, warm but strange, like sunlight through water. Kale felt energy moving through him, stronger than anything he had experienced. Pain and weakness ebbed from his body, replaced by a clarity and calm he hadn't felt in days. "Do not be afraid," Nivara whispered. "It is temporary. You will feel strength and clarity, and your immune system will respond faster. You will heal others more efficiently through this connection." Kale nodded, awed and nervous. He could feel his body responding to hers in ways he could not explain. His vision sharpened. He could sense the patient's needs more clearly, their sickness more precisely. Even the monitors and machines seemed easier to understand. As the day went on, Kyle found himself moving through the infirmary alongside Nivara, assisting in ways he had never imagined. His hands, once clumsy and uncertain, guided patients to beds, adjusted monitors, and delivered medication under Nivara's direction. He even felt a faint thrill each time a colonist responded quickly to treatment. "What do you feel?" Nivara asked quietly during a brief pause. Kale hesitated. I don't know. Stronger? Clearer? I can feel more. "That is the bond," she said. "It allows life energy to flow through both of us. Together we can save many." By mid-afternoon, Kale realized he had survived not just because of her healing, but because of this connection. And as he worked, he noticed something else. Small gestures from Nivara that went beyond duty. The way she paused to ensure he was steady, the faint smile she gave when he succeeded in a task, the soft glance that lingered longer than necessary. Kyle tried to push the thoughts away. He was here to survive, not to feel anything. Yet he could not deny a strange warmth spreading through him each time she looked at him. Then, a new challenge arrived. A sudden surge of the virus appeared in the western sector of the colony. Alarms blared as the infection spread rapidly through a group of colonists who had seemed stable only moments before. Nivara turned to Kale. "We must act quickly," she said. "You and I will treat them together. Move fast, but carefully." Kyle's heart pounded, but he followed her without hesitation. They moved through the hallways, side by side. Kale could feel her energy flowing through him, guiding his actions. He placed his hands on a colonist, and the warmth of life surged from him as Nivara's power amplified it. Slowly, the patients began to stabilize. After hours of work, the surge was contained. Kyle sank to the floor, exhausted. Nivara crouched beside him. "You did well," she said. "Many are alive because of your actions." Kyle looked at her, breathing heavily. I couldn't have done it without you." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Perhaps not. But you allowed yourself to trust. That is what matters." Kyle's mind raced. Trust. Feelings. Bond. He shook his head, trying to organize his thoughts. He had agreed to the ritual out of necessity, but he could not deny that something else was stirring inside him. Night fell, and the infirmary quieted for a moment. The colonists were resting. Kale sat on the edge of his bed, staring at Nivara as she checked equipment. She moved gracefully, efficient, and calm, yet there was a softness in her gaze that made his chest tighten. "Kale," she said suddenly, her voice gentle. "Do you understand the bond fully?" I think so," he replied. "It's more than survival. It's connection." "Yes," she said. "Connection. It is necessary to heal, but it may also lead to something more. That is the choice of the bonded." Kyle's stomach turned. Something more? He had survived against impossible odds, and now he was being asked to consider feelings for an alien. He shook his head, trying to focus on the task. Yet, despite his attempts, he could not ignore the strange pull he felt whenever she was near. As he lay back on the bed, he realized that surviving the outbreak might not be the only challenge. Understanding the bond, the connection, and what it meant for him and Nivara would be far more complicated. Outside, the twin moons of Zarion 7 shone brightly, casting silver light across the colony. Inside, Kale understood something he had not felt before. Survival alone was no longer enough. He was living through something that could change his heart, whether he was ready or not, and somehow, he felt that Nivara had already changed hers. The next morning, the colony was quiet but tense. The outbreak had slowed, yet Kale knew danger still lurked in every corridor. The bond with Nivara had strengthened overnight, though he still struggled to understand it fully. He could feel her, energy guiding him, lending him strength and clarity, and he found himself anticipating her presence more than he should. Kale moved through the infirmary, checking monitors and helping colonists adjust to the new treatment schedule. Nivara glided. Beside him, her movements precise and confident. She paused occasionally to instruct him, her silver eyes catching his attention. Every glance, every small gesture made his chest tighten. He forced himself to focus. There was work to do. Lives depended on it. Suddenly, alarms blared from the western sector. Another wave of the virus had appeared, more aggressive than before. Kale's heart raced. He and Nivara exchanged a quick glance. Without words, they moved into action. The western sector was chaos. Colonists lay weakly on the floor, some barely conscious. Kyle's hands trembled at first, but as he connected with Nivara through the bond, he felt energy flowing through him, steadying his movements. Together they worked in silence, placing their hands on patients, guiding the life energy that surged between them. Slowly, the colonists began to stabilize. Kale felt exhausted, but he also felt alive in a way he had never known. This bond, this connection with Nivara, was more than survival. It was a strange kind of clarity, a sense of purpose. He realized he trusted her completely, more than he had trusted anyone in his life. When the last patient was stable, Kale leaned against a wall, breathing heavily. Nivara approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch was firm but gentle, grounding him. "You are improving," she said softly. "Your connection with the bond strengthens daily. You are becoming more effective at healing through it." Kale looked at her, noticing the faint smile that touched her lips. I don't know how to thank you," he admitted. "You've saved so many lives, including mine." Nivara's eyes met his, calm and steady. "You are doing your part. That is all that matters. The bond works because you allow it, because you trust me. That is your true strength." Kyle's mind spun. Trust, strength, feelings he could not name. He tried to push the thoughts aside, but he found himself glancing at her more often, noticing the way her hair shimmered in the light, the calm confidence in her every move. Somehow, the bond was teaching him more than healing. It was teaching him about connection, about seeing another being as more than just a stranger. Over the next few days, Kale and Nivara faced constant challenges. Supplies were limited, the virus unpredictable, and colonists' fears rising. Kale noticed subtle signs that some humans were uneasy about the bond. Whispers followed him in the corridors. "He's bonded with an alien?" some murmured. Others looked at him with suspicion or fear. Kale ignored them, focusing on Nivara and their work. But he could not help noticing the reactions, the way some colonists avoided him or the infirmary entirely. Nivara seemed unaffected, moving through the halls with calm authority, but Kale could sense her awareness. She never spoke of it directly, yet he felt the quiet strength of her presence whenever doubts or fear crept into his mind. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Kyle found himself alone with Nivara in the infirmary. She was checking equipment when he spoke. "Nivara, do you ever feel anything beyond the bond?" he asked hesitantly. His cheeks burned as soon as the words left his mouth. She paused, her hands stilling. "Feelings? Beyond the bond?" she repeated, her tone careful. "You mean emotions that are not necessary for survival?" Kale nodded. "Yes, I don't know. Sometimes I feel something else when I'm with you. I can't explain it. It's more than the bond. Nivara regarded him quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light of the infirmary. It is natural, she said finally. The bond allows connection, and connection can grow into something deeper. That is a risk, but it is not forbidden. It is your choice whether to explore it. Kale's heart thudded in his chest. He had not expected her to acknowledge it. You feel it too? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Nivara tilted her head, studying him with a calm intensity. The bond affects both parties, she said. It is not only your perception that changes. It is mutual, though subtle. You may not have noticed until now. Kyle swallowed hard. His mind raced with possibilities. Survival had brought them together. But now, something else was emerging. He had never imagined falling for an alien, yet the thought of her not being near filled him with an unexplainable dread. Over the following days, Kyle found himself paying closer attention to Nivara. Not just her actions, but her presence, her expressions, the way she moved. He noticed small moments of kindness, how she paused to comfort a frightened colonist, the slight nod she gave him when he succeeded at a task, the way she adjusted her posture when he approached. Each gesture made his chest tighten and his mind whirl. One afternoon, a young child fell gravely ill. The virus had mutated, and the small body struggled against it. Kyle felt panic rise in his chest. Nivara placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding. Him. Stay calm, she instructed. Channel the bond. Focus your energy on the child. Kyle nodded, taking a deep breath. He placed his hands on the child, feeling Nivara's power flow through him. Warmth spread, and slowly, color returned to the child's cheeks. Relief flooded Kale, but it was tinged with a deeper emotion, gratitude, awe, and something more that he could not yet name. As they stepped back, both exhausted but victorious, Nivara looked at him with a faint smile. You are learning quickly, she said, not only the bond, but trust, patience, and care. That is what makes you strong. Kale felt his chest tighten again, realizing she was speaking not just to his skills, but to his heart. The bond had begun as a necessity, a way to survive. But now, it had become something else entirely, an emotional connection that neither of them could ignore. That night, as Kyle lay in his bed, he thought of Nivara, her presence, her energy, her calm and steady guidance. It was impossible to separate survival from the feelings that were quietly growing inside him. For the first time, he understood that the bond was not just about life and death. It was about trust, connection, and perhaps something even more powerful. Outside, the twin moons of Zerion 7 cast silver light across the colony. Inside, Kale knew that survival had brought him to her, but now his heart was beginning a journey he could never have predicted. The colony was tense. Rumors spread quickly that some humans did not trust the aliens. Kyle could feel the unease in the hallways, in the nervous glances of his fellow colonists. Many whispered about the bond he had formed with Nivara. Some even said it was unnatural, dangerous, or unwise to rely on an alien. Kale ignored them, focusing on the patients and on Nivara. But the whispers lingered in the back of his mind. Then the alarms rang again. The virus had mutated. This new strain was faster, stronger, and more aggressive. Colonists who had been stable were falling ill again. Kyle felt a cold wave of fear, not for himself, but for those who depended on him. Nivara moved with calm urgency. Kyle, we must act immediately, she said. This outbreak is unlike the others. We cannot treat everyone in the infirmary. Some will need immediate stabilization in the field. Kale nodded. He felt the bond humming through him, guiding his hands and mind. Together, they organized a small team, including a few trusted colonists, and prepared to leave the safety of the infirmary. As they moved into the western sector, Kale saw the damage the new virus had caused. Several colonists lay unconscious on the ground, others trembling violently. The air was thick with fear. Kale swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. He could feel Nivara's presence beside him, calm and steady, and it grounded him. Suddenly, a human overseer appeared in the doorway, his face pale and eyes filled with suspicion. "Kyle, you can't trust her," he shouted. "She's an alien! You're putting the colony at risk by following her." Kale felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to remain calm. "She saved lives," he said firmly. "We survive because of her. The bond is helping everyone." The overseer shook his head. "It's unnatural. We can't let this continue. Separate yourself from her. Now." Kale's hands clenched. He had faced danger from the virus, but now he faced fear and mistrust from his own people. He looked at Nivara, whose silver eyes met his without hesitation. "We don't have time," she said softly. "Lives are at stake. Trust me, Kyle. Trust the bond." Kyle took a deep breath and turned away from the overseer. "We don't have time for fear," he said. "The colony needs us. Come with me, or stay behind." With that, they continued toward the western sector. Kale and Nivara moved quickly, tending to colonists who were on the brink of collapse. The bond flowed through him, giving him strength and clarity. He felt her energy guiding, his hands lending him patience and precision. Each colonist he helped brought a new sense of purpose. Hours passed like minutes. Kale and Nivara worked tirelessly, moving through the infected zone. The bond was more than a tool. It was a connection that made him feel alive, aware, and focused. He could sense Nivara's thoughts, her care, her concentration, and it drove him to push harder, move faster, and think clearer. At one point, they reached a group of colonists trapped in a damaged sector. The floor had collapsed in several places, leaving gaps that made movement dangerous. Kyle's heart raced, but Nivara held his hand for a brief moment. The bond pulsed, filling him with calm courage. Together, they guided the colonists safely across the unstable terrain. Once the last colonist was safe, Kale collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but relieved. Nivara crouched beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "You did well," she said, her voice soft. "Your courage and focus saved many today." Kyle looked at her, breathing heavily. I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. "The bond, it's more than I thought. It's you." Nivara's silver eyes softened. "It is mutual, Kyle. The bond allows connection, and connection allows us to act together. You are brave, compassionate, and strong. That is why it works so well." Kyle felt warmth rise in his chest. The exhaustion, the fear, and the tension melted away in that moment. For the first time, he realized the bond was not just about survival. It was about trust, partnership, and something deeper he had not yet fully named. The human overseer appeared. Again, this time accompanied by a small group of colonists. They watched from a distance, whispering and pointing. Kyle ignored them, focusing on Nivara and the people they had just saved. "We need to return to the infirmary," Nivara said. "The outbreak is not fully contained, but we have stabilized this sector. You must rest." Kyle shook his head. I can't stop yet. There's too much to do." She smiled faintly. "Rest does not mean weakness. Even the strongest must recover to continue helping others. Come." Reluctantly, Kyle allowed her to guide him back. As they moved, he noticed something he had not before, the way she watched over him, not just professionally, but with quiet care. His heart thumped in a way that had nothing to do with fear or adrenaline. That night, as the colony slept, Kyle lay in his bed, exhausted but awake. He thought of Nivara, her strength, her calm presence, her silver eyes that seemed to see everything. The bond had begun as a necessity, a way to survive. Now it had become something else entirely, a connection that made him feel alive, aware, and perhaps something more. Outside, the twin moons cast pale light across the colony. Inside, Kale understood that the real challenge was not just surviving the virus or even the distrust of others. The real challenge was learning to trust, to feel, and to embrace the bond that had brought him closer to Nivara than he ever imagined possible. He closed his eyes, letting the bond guide his thoughts. Tomorrow would bring more danger, more challenges, and more decisions. But for the first time, he felt ready, not just to survive, but to face whatever came with her by his side. The bond pulsed gently in his chest, a reminder that survival had brought them together. And perhaps that connection could become something neither of them expected, but both would find impossible to ignore. The colony was quiet, but the tension remained. The outbreak was mostly under control now, though isolated cases still appeared. Kale moved through the infirmary with practiced ease, his body no longer trembling from fear, but from the long hours and strain of the past days. Yet, despite his exhaustion, he found himself watching Nivara more closely than ever. She moved among the patients with calm precision, her silver eyes glowing faintly under the dim lights. Kale noticed small things, the way her hands hovered, a little longer over a child's head, the subtle tilt of her head as she studied a patient's vitals, the quiet hum of energy that seemed to surround her. He had been through life and death situations before, but never had he felt such awe for someone, let alone an alien. After finishing a round of treatments, Kale found Nivara standing near a window, looking out at the twin moons of Zerion 7. The bond pulsed gently in his chest as he approached. "You've done well today," she said without turning. Her voice was soft, calm, but carried an intensity that made Kale's heart race. I couldn't have done it without you," Kyle admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "The bond. It's more than I expected. I can feel you, your thoughts, your care. I think I'm starting to feel more than gratitude." Nivara turned to him slowly. Her eyes met his, silver and unflinching. "It is natural," she said. "The bond allows connection, and connection can grow. You feel what is called attachment." Kyle felt a shiver run down his spine. "Attachment?" he echoed. You mean love?" Nivara's lips curved slightly in a faint smile. "Perhaps. That is a human word. We may not have the exact same concept, but your feeling is real. It is mutual. You have felt my care, and I have felt yours." Kale's chest tightened. For days, he had struggled to name the warmth in his heart, the pull toward her, the way his body and mind responded to her presence. Now, hearing her acknowledge it, he felt a mixture of relief and wonder. The next hours passed in a different rhythm. They worked together, tending to patients, but there was a subtle shift. Every glance, every touch, carried meaning beyond the bond. Kale found himself drawn to her, watching her movements, noticing the way light reflected off her skin, the gentle hum of energy that seemed to follow her. At one point, a colonist, a young girl, fell into a sudden collapse. Kale moved quickly, placing his hands on her as Nivara guided the energy through him. Warmth surged through his body, and he felt her presence beside him, steady and strong. The girl's breathing stabilized, her color returning. Kale exhaled, sharply, relief washing over him. He looked at Navara, and for a moment, words failed him. She simply gave him a small nod, her eyes soft, as if acknowledging not just his skill, but his heart. Later, as they rested in the infirmary, Kale finally spoke what had been building inside him. "Nivara, I don't want this bond to be just about survival anymore," he admitted. I care about you. More than I thought possible." Nivara studied him for a long moment. "Kyle, you do not need to be afraid of your feelings. They are real. The bond has allowed you to see beyond fear and instinct. You care because you trust, and I care as well." Kale felt his breath catch. He had survived the virus, the fear, and the distrust of others, but this admission felt like stepping into a new world, a world where he was not just surviving but living. For the next few days, the bond continued to strengthen, but now with a new depth. Kale and Nivara shared small, intimate moments, adjusting a patient's position together, sharing a quiet word of encouragement, laughing softly when a colonist's fear caused a minor chaos. The bond had grown into trust, friendship, and something more. One evening, after the final patient of the day had been stabilized, Kyle and Nivara stood alone in the infirmary. The twin moons shone brightly outside, casting silver light across the room. Kyle took a deep breath. "Nivara, I don't know what tomorrow will bring," he said, "but I know this. I want to stay connected to you, not just through the bond, but in every way I can." Nivara's eyes softened. "That is a choice only you can make, Kyle. But know this, the bond has shown me your heart, your courage, your care, your loyalty. All of it matters. I have already chosen." Kyle's chest tightened, and he felt an overwhelming warmth spread through him. He took her hand gently, the bond pulsing softly between them. "Then we face everything together," he said. She nodded, her faint smile reflecting the same warmth he felt. "Together," she agreed. That night, as Kale lay in his bed, he thought of Nivara. The bond had started as a tool for survival, a way to heal and protect the colony. But now, it had become a bridge between their hearts, an emotional connection neither of them could ignore. He realized that the challenge was no longer just the virus, or distrust, or survival. It was learning to embrace the feelings that had quietly grown inside him. He closed his eyes, letting the bond pulse softly, and he understood something he had never imagined, that survival could lead to trust, trust could lead to connection, and connection could lead to love. And he was ready to see where it would take them. Outside, the twin moons reflected off the colony's walls, casting long shadows across the infirmary. Inside, Kale and Nivara rested, bonded by survival, trust, and a newfound affection that neither would deny. For the first time in days, Kale felt a calm certainty. Whatever challenges awaited, he would face them with her by his side. The bond had saved their lives. Now it had opened their hearts, and neither of them would ever forget that truth. The colony had begun to heal. The outbreak, once a relentless enemy, was now mostly under control. Colonists moved with more confidence, their fear replaced by cautious hope. Kale walked through the infirmary, checking on patients with a calm focus he had not known before. The bond with Nivara pulsed softly through him, steady and comforting. He glanced at her, standing near the large observation window, her silver eyes reflecting the soft glow of Zarion 7's twin moons. She was serene, yet alive with energy, the same calm strength that had carried them through the worst days of the outbreak. Kale felt warmth rise in his chest. He had survived against impossible odds, but it was not just survival he now valued. It was this connection, this shared purpose, and the growing affection that had quietly grown between them. Kyle, Nivara said, her voice breaking his thoughts. The last patients are stable. We have succeeded. Kyle allowed himself a small smile. Thanks to you, he said. I've learned more than medicine, more than survival. I've learned trust, connection, and something else I never expected. Nivara studied him. And what is that? Kale took a deep breath. I've learned I care for you, not just because of the bond, but because of who you are. Your courage, your calm, your care. I'm falling for you. For a moment, Nivara said nothing. Then a faint smile curved her lips. Kyle, I have felt the same. The bond allowed us to survive, but it also showed me your heart, your bravery, your patience, your willingness to trust. It matters. I care for you beyond duty and ritual. Kale's chest tightened. He had survived danger, fear, and exhaustion, but hearing her words made his heart race in a new, thrilling way. He stepped closer, feeling the warmth of the bond pulse between them. We've faced so much together, he said softly. And now we can face whatever comes next. Together. Nivara nodded, placing her hand lightly over his. The bond pulsed gently, a reminder of their shared strength, their shared care, and the growing connection that had become more than survival. In the following days, the colony celebrated its recovery. Colonists, once fearful of the aliens, began to acknowledge the value of their help. Kale and Nivara moved among them, their partnership now recognized not just as a necessity, but as a symbol of unity between human and alien. Whispers that had once been filled with suspicion were now tinged with admiration. Kyle and Nivara worked side by side, finishing repairs, improving medical systems, and restoring the colony to full function. They shared small moments of quiet laughter and conversation, enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. The bond remained, but it was no longer just a tool. It was a bridge between their hearts, a subtle pulse of connection that reminded them of everything they had endured together. One evening after the last patient had been discharged, Kyle found Nivara standing outside the infirmary, looking out at the colony bathed in moonlight. He approached her silently. You've done more than heal, he said softly. You've shown me courage, trust, and care. You've changed my life. Nivara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the silver light. And you've shown me the strength of humanity, she said. Your resilience, your kindness, your willingness to trust. All of it matters. You have changed me as well. Kale took a deep breath. Then let us continue together, not just for survival, but for everything else, for life, for this colony, for us. Nivara's lips curved in a soft, genuine smile. Yes, she said, for us. They stood together, hand in hand, feeling the bond pulse gently, no longer just for healing, but as a reminder of their trust, care, and growing affection. Around them, the colony rested peacefully, the threat of the virus finally fading into memory. In the days that followed, Kale and Nivara were seen not only as healers, but as a living symbol of unity. Colonists who had once feared them now sought their guidance and assistance. Children played near their workstations, laughing and asking questions about alien medicine, while adults marveled at the cooperation and trust between human and alien. Kale felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Survival had been the beginning, but now connection and trust had blossomed into something far greater. He and Nivara shared quiet walks beneath the twin moons, discussing hopes for the future, planning improvements to the colony, and simply enjoying the presence of one another. One evening, as they stood atop the central observation tower, looking out at the silver landscape of Zerion 7, Kale spoke again. "Do you think this bond will last?" Nivara placed her hand over his, the warmth of their connection strong and steady. "The bond itself is temporary," she said, "but the connection it created, that is permanent. We choose it every day. And I will choose it, Kale, for as long as I can." Kale smiled, feeling a weight lift from his heart. Survival had brought them together. Danger had tested them. And now, trust, connection, and love had made them partners in every sense. They looked out at the stars, the colony below them calm and thriving. Kyle felt hope rising, a quiet certainty that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them side by side. The bond had saved their lives. The connection had saved their hearts. And together, Kale and Nivara stepped into the future, not just as survivors, but as partners, friends, and something far deeper, love that had grown from trust, courage, and the will to face the unknown, together. Under the silver moons of Zerion 7, Kale finally understood that survival was only the beginning. The true reward was the connection he had found, the trust he had earned, and the love that had blossomed from the bond that had once been only about life itself. And in that quiet moment, holding Nivara's hand, he knew that whatever the stars might hold, they would face it together.